The Honourable Tim Grosser.
Mr Speaker, a number of members on various political parties have spoken, I think, very eloquently and very sincerely about the aftershock, and everybody's heart is with the people of Canterbury. There's no question about that. But, of course, one also thinks about the economic consequences of these great natural disasters, and I just like to make the very obvious point, Mr Speaker, that our number 4 trading partner, Japan, our number 1 trading partner, Australia, they too have seen the huge economic consequences of their own tragedies. It's not Japan about not just in appalling human terms, but also in economic terms. And in Australia, we've just seen the worst GDP quarterly output figures for 20 years as a consequence of the floods and the tornadoes. So unquestionably, these great acts of God can influence the real economy, and we're very conscious of that. But at the end of the day, the question remains, have we got ourselves onto a pathway where structurally we can look forward with a certain degree of optimism to our future? And the answer to that, in my view, Mr Speaker, is unquestionably yes. The foundations, in spite of these shocks, in spite of the global financial crisis, are being laid, as Mr English has pointed out on numerous occasions, for a more sustainable growth trajectory for New Zealand. One that is not based on debt-fuelled consumption, one that is not based on structural government programs that support unsustainable jobs and wealth creation, but a true basis of reinforcing the competitive strengths of the New Zealand trade sector and earning our way in the world. That is the basis of the policy structures that we are putting in place, and that is why I believe New Zealanders should have confidence that we are on a trajectory to a sustainably more secure future. Now, could we have got back to surplus faster than the projections that we have on the table? Oh yes, of course we could. But that would have required, Mr Speaker, a far faster and far more brutal adjustment by firms, by farms, by households and by the public services to the circumstances that I've outlined. So we have taken a deliberate decision. I don't think we have taken unreasonable decisions. Some of them have been quite tough. But we now have a pathway to get New Zealand back onto a sustainable trajectory that I think people should have great confidence in. We've taken reasonable but balanced positions, and in the process maintained welfare programs to support those in difficulty, and we have fully compensated people on superannuation for the structural tax changes. Now, we just heard once again in question time, as we hear every question time, attempts to find one individual, one company in hard times, and well, out of 4.5 million folk, you can always find a case study to wave in front of you. But the reality is that we have to advance our society using and measures that look at averages. And what we know is that in terms of the direct impact on the pocket, in the 9 years to September 2008, for the after-tax average real wage, that means adjusted for inflation, we saw a 4% increase over 9 years. Mr Speaker, we have practically doubled, well, more than doubled actually, 10% increase since September 2008. So while, of course, there will always be folk who, for their set of individual reasons, get themselves into trouble, and we all feel for them, the reality is that the position of New Zealanders has, on average, advanced more than twice as much in little over 2.5 years as occurred in the entire 9 years of Labour. But in the meantime, we are proceeding with our structural agenda of reform that will build that sustainable economic future. First of all, we had a concerted attempt to get better value for money out of our public services. The days have gone, Mr Speaker, when truckloads of money would arrive through the front door of government agencies, very little accountability. As long as it had the right label on, they got a big tick. We are now starting in a very reasonable way to advance that agenda.
Moana